Good morning. I want to thank you, Marion. That was lovely. And I would also like to thank Amy Cooper, Danielle Lashinsky, and the entire conference planning team. It is an insane privilege to be here. Thank you so, so much. It's also kind of inconceivable that I should be speaking with you today, that I should have become the longest-running female network chief in the history of broadcast television during a time in which the odds were stacked well against me. What kind of chutzpah does it take to step away from that hard-won position after a 30-year career in television to pursue different creative ambitions, devote myself to nonprofit causes, and lastly, publish a book, a collection of essays from mothers in positions of leadership on raising their daughters to be the next generation of empowered women? Clearly, the heartfelt, soul-bearing, brave messages in these essays has even greater significance given the current tenor of political rhetoric. But I must be honest and confess that the business in which I work and have worked for these many years has presented me from time to time with many existential crises. After all, I'm just a middle-class, Puerto Rican Jewish kid from a quasi-hippie family, a woman finding her way through a predominantly male industry, clutching a Bachelor of Fine Arts in a world of folks with law degrees and MBAs, ultimately working in a business where failure is a key factor in the formula for success. Early in my career, I was fortunate to work as an agent in a large, prestigious talent agency, at the time, one of the 4 biggest agencies in the world. This was a pivotal time in my career. I found myself learning from some of the most experienced agents in the business and working with some of the biggest names in Hollywood, from Morgan Freeman to Julie Andrews to Bruce Willis. This was the late 80s. Film and television business was booming. The mega agency business was exploding. The stakes were high, and some of the personalities with whom I worked were certifiable. And that's the truth. It was an exciting and equally terrifying time. But learning to deal with and accept fear can be empowering. It will most likely reveal itself in different forms throughout your life, be it fear of failure or fear of success, fear of the unknown, or fear of rejection, or fear of shame. Accepting fear head-on is freeing. As my hero Eleanor Roosevelt said, when you have the strength, courage, and confidence to look fear in the face, you are able to say to yourself, I have lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. The stereotype of the cutthroat Hollywood talent agent, you've all seen Entourage? Not such a stereotype. But back in the day, an accurate representation of the way men, and yes, even women, conducted business. But it was in this insanely competitive, egocentric world that I found a wonderful mentor, a man with whom I remain friends to this day. He taught me there's no limit to what you can do if you don't mind who gets the credit. This is a wonderfully, wonderfully liberating idea. Because if taking credit and ownership is a driving principle, you will miss out on the experiential quality of working, the joys of learning and collaborating. Now, allow me to remind you, I had not been groomed to climb the corporate ladder. I had 0 experience in business. And I was a proud, card-carrying feminist in a town where sexism and misogyny were the norms. All over Hollywood, I witnessed the objectification of female actors, overheard derogatory language used to describe the female anatomy. The myth of the casting couch, not such a myth after all, but a scandalous reality. It was in this epiphanous moment that my commitment to feminism and the courage to embrace fear served me well. The best antidote to fear is your curiosity, passion, and creativity. Therefore, I felt my next step required me to hold firm to my beliefs, rededicate myself to my creative ambitions, and make a change. As Erica Jong once said, to accept fear is a part of life, specifically the fear of change. I have gone ahead, despite the pounding in my heart that says, turn back. Embracing change and confronting fear served me well. Now, even with this rekindled enthusiasm, I still had increasing doubt about the state of my so-called career. How was I going to thrive, let alone just survive in a business where sexism, racism, nepotism, narcissism, cronyism, and virtually every other nasty ism you can think of reared its ugly head to me at one time or another? This was the time to persevere, to find a way to fight against the prevailing culture and look for a way to have more influence over the status quo. Could I parlay my newly minted business and sales experience as a talent agent into a field that would allow me to incorporate my creative expertise in production and storytelling? Where could I have more impact on the gender imbalance and other inequities that existed in our industry? I soon realized I possessed all the necessary talent and training to bring to a different and far more exciting area of the television business, as well as afford me a greater opportunity to influence the kinds of stories and programs produced for television. I was hired by Warner Brothers to develop and sell dramas to, at the time, only 5 broadcast networks and the handful of cable networks: Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, and other streaming platforms, still years away. It was during my time at Warner Brothers I was privileged to be a part of the creative team that developed the show ER. The Sisyphean path this extraordinary show had to travel from script to series allowed me to witness and participate in the anatomy of developing hit television shows. Now, mind you, it is still not a perfect science. There is no formula by which we can turn out successful programs every time. Rather, it was through this experience that I observed key leadership traits in all aspects of this production. The showrunner, John Wells, one of the most celebrated producers in TV history, was a consummate leader and collaborator, respecting all voices in his writer's room, always diplomatic and decisive about the creative direction of his show. The cast, led by the now famous George Clooney, was a community of artists, creatively challenging each other, generously reaching out to their fellow actors to deliver the most compelling performances. Lastly, the writing itself. I read samples and hired every writer who was part of the series. What I learned from that experience has had a direct correlation to virtually everything I have sought to achieve in my life and my career. Each writer brought a wholly unique experience, a unique voice, attitude, identity, depth of experience, and temperament to their job. From my unique vantage point, I was able to observe the process by which different voices could be singularly preserved and simultaneously synthesized in a way to protect the value of every individual, but always contribute to the overall creative good. During the course of its historic run, ER won 13 Emmy Awards and received 124 Emmy nominations, which makes it the most nominated drama program and the longest-running primetime medical drama in history. To share with you a small irony, the year ER premiered on NBC, another medical show was programmed on another network, CBS, and widely believed would be the breakout hit that season. That show was called Chicago Hope. My tenure at Warner Brothers was critical in honing my management skills. I was creating more opportunities for women writers, identifying talent, advocating for the employment of more women in the executive ranks, and always fostering an inclusive and nurturing environment where every employee has a voice. The last leg of my journey brought me to CBS. My boss at Warner Brothers, Leslie Moonves, had recently moved to the network, contacted me, and asked me if I would join him. I was excited, but I had reservations. I just spent 8 years at Warner Brothers Television. I was settled, comfortable, creatively satisfied. I knew who I was and proud of the work I was doing. And now what? More change? I thought about a quote from Gilda Radner. Life is about not knowing, having to change, taking the moment and making the best of it without knowing what's going to happen next. Taking the job at CBS was my transformative moment. I joined CBS in 1997 when the network was in last place. In terms of the Hollywood food chain, network television was the big leagues. I would still be making key creative decisions, but now I would be in a critical leadership role, making decisions that not only impacted the lives of CBS employees, but programming decisions, overseeing every day part that informed the success or failure of our entire network schedule. I have to admit, I was exhilarated at the prospect of undertaking this new challenge. However, all of this was not without risk. The shelf life for network executives was legendarily short-lived. I would be judged daily based on our program's ratings performance, and the risk of being fired was an absolute reality. But this was the opportunity of a lifetime. When I began my career 30 years ago, I was a young actress, dreaming of working on Broadway. I had no idea I would become one of just 3 women to run CBS since its inception. With each step forward, I also took a step back to evaluate where I had been. What skills would I carry with me? How would I adapt to a marketplace that was changing so rapidly? Our business is currently undergoing a seismic transformation, from streaming to content creation, delivery systems, multi-platform programming, cord-cutting, vertical integration, virtually an entirely new vernacular with ever-evolving and emerging new revenue models. My years at CBS spanned close to 20 years. Having been a part of CBS's reclamation as the #1 network during my tenure gives me great pride. Over the years, I bought and programmed some of the most successful shows in television history, from CSI to The Big Bang Theory to The Good Wife. It was a great ride, but time to write a new chapter. With the publication of my book, What I Told My Daughter, Lessons from Leaders on Raising the Next Generation of Empowered Women, the lessons shared by mothers from all walks of life and areas of expertise are intimate stories that offer comfort, reassurance, guidance, solace, camaraderie, hope, and relief. It took great bravery for these mothers to share these types of stories, from Ruth Bader Ginsburg to former First Lady Laura Bush to Academy Award winner Gina Davis. Working on this book immediately brought life's lessons into sharp focus for me. Every woman who contributed had her own personal experience, a wholly unique journey from motherhood to leadership. By embracing their own authentic voice, each mother encouraged their daughter to author her own narrative, emphasizing that each woman is the architect of her own destiny. Yet the unifying theme shared throughout the book, resilience, gender equality, freedom of choice, activism, inclusion, individualism, speak entirely to how we are connected as a community of strong, empowered women with leadership traits that reflect our core values and the quality of our character. What I Told My Daughter represents a vision for all women to achieve their own definition of success, while always respecting the rules of civility and basic human dignity. May each of you write your own chapter. Thank you very much.